Number 1. When I was little, my favorite holiday was Halloween. The only day of the year when kids can run around dressed up like monsters and eat as much candy as they want. One Halloween, my friend Max and I were trick-or-treating around my neighborhood. We planned on hitting all the houses in between our homes and a few surrounding streets, then double back to Max's place and hang out there for a couple hours. I'd say around 10 p.m., we had just gotten our candy from a house, and we saw a man walking down the street in our direction. We didn't think anything of it at first and walked down to the street. When we got there, we saw he was wearing a gray hoodie and ripped jeans. The hood was over his head and he was wearing a mask like those in The Purge. When we got closer to him, he looked at us and slowly waved at us. We were creeped out, so we turned and quickly walked away from the man. We skipped a couple of houses just to get farther away from him, but nevertheless, he seemed to be following us. Whenever we got our candy and turned back to the street, he'd be there, watching us. Even if we skipped a couple of houses, he would still be there. We weren't sure how he managed to keep up with us. As we got closer to Max's house, we weren't sure if we wanted to show this guy where he lived. We were a couple houses away at this point, and we had gotten our candy. We turned back to the street, and as expected, the guy was there watching us. Only this time, there was a big black van parked on the other side of the street. The windows were so tinted we could barely see inside. The masked man waved at us and then motioned us to come over. We didn't go with him, since we were the type of kids to obey the stranger danger rule, and when we didn't respond, the guy started walking up the lawn closer to us. Quickly, we knocked on the door until the house owners answered. We explained to them what was going on while pointing at the man. The man quickly walked back to the van and drove away. We never saw him again. Now here's the scariest part. The next morning, I was watching TV. I saw a news article talking about a masked man following children around and waving them over to his van. The article included a picture of the guy and his black van, and I knew it was the same person who followed me and Max that night. Stay safe this Halloween, and always be aware of your surroundings. You never know what may be lurking in the darkness. Number 2. At the time of this story, I was a cop for 20 years, and I was stationed in the suburbs of New York City. This story takes place during Halloween night. My partner Mike and I were patrolling a suburban park for the night. We were talking to each other about family, friends, the news, etc., when we heard a twig snap a few feet away from us. We didn't think anything of it at first, but then we heard a loud chuckle coming from the same direction. We looked and saw 2 clowns staring at us. One of them was wearing a red, white, and yellow striped coat, and the other was wearing a blue coat with green and purple polka dots. They were both wearing red wigs and white masks with truly horrific smiles. We stared at each other for a few minutes, before my partner broke the silence. "Stay away from us, or we'll shoot," he shouted. He quickly pulled his gun from his holster, as did I. The clowns looked at each other, and then back at us. Then the striped one said, "Say, ever heard of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?" The polka-dotted one giggled in response, before pulling a chainsaw out from behind a park bench and revving it up. The 2 clowns began running at us, and Mike and I bolted for the car. Yes, I may have had a gun, but the idea of using it on another human is horrifying to me, and I think Mike felt the same way. We could hear the ungodly sound of the chainsaw close behind us. We eventually got to the squad car and jumped inside. Not a second after we shut the doors and locked them, the clowns were right outside the car. I was in the passenger seat, and only a thin sheet of glass separated me from them. The clowns cackled and jeered, and the one with the chainsaw tapped the blade against the car window a few times. Then the striped one pointed at his eyes and then at me, clearly saying, "We're watching you." After that, the 2 clowns walked back into the park. Mike and I just sat there for a few moments in silence, thinking and reflecting on what just happened. We sped back to the station and told everyone what just happened. Thankfully, that crazy clown epidemic only lasted a month or so later, and I couldn't be more grateful. Number 3. Halloween is the craziest holiday of the year where I live. I live in a suburban area, and a lot of children live in my neighborhood. On Halloween, that means a lot of children walking up and down the street and knocking on my door long into the night. That's not to say I don't like Halloween. Every year, I decorate my house and front yard with skeletons, cobwebs, glowing spiders, and the like. One particular year, I wasn't getting as many trick-or-treaters as I was used to, so I was spending most of my time watching the horror movie marathon on AMC. I'd say around 11 at night, the doorbell rang. This was the first time in a while someone came by, so it took me by surprise. I walked to the door with my candy bowl and opened it. There, on the porch, was a tall figure dressed in black clothing, holding a white pillow sack, and wearing a vendetta mask. He didn't say anything when I opened the door, not even trick or treat, but I still gave him a bunch of candy. He then slowly turned around and walked away. I was a bit creeped out, but figured it was probably nothing. I shut the door and went back to the TV. I'd say about a few minutes later, the kitchen phone rang. I wasn't sure who was calling this time of night, but I picked up anyway. The only thing I heard on the other end was heavy breathing. I figured it was someone pulling a Halloween prank call on me and hung up. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. I picked up again, and the same thing happened. I hung up after a few minutes of listening to this person breathe. Now I was starting to feel uneasy. I went back to the TV, but not without making sure the doors and windows were locked, just in case. Nothing happened for a little while after that, but around midnight, the phone rang one more time. I was so tired of this. I went to the phone and picked up once again, and once again, all I heard was the breathing. At this point, I was tired and annoyed, so I finally decided to talk to this person. I said, "Look, pal, either you stop calling this number, or I'm calling the police and having you arrested." I didn't really expect a reply, but a low chuckle came in response. Then, in a deep, spine-tingling voice, I heard, "I'm just waiting for you to come downstairs." I immediately ran up to my room, not even bothering to put the phone back on the receiver. I locked the door and called the police, and they said they would send someone out right away. I stayed in my room for about 20 minutes until I heard sirens coming up my street. I then heard banging on my door, along with someone shouting "police," and it was only then that I felt safe to open my door. The cops searched the house and found no one inside, but when they searched my basement, they found two things: a white vendetta mask and a sticky note that said, "Happy Halloween," with a terrifying smiley face. They confiscated the mask and note and told me they would be in touch. I decided I was done for the night, so I shut off all my lights and went to bed. I haven't heard back from them, and it's been a few years now. Fortunately, I haven't had any other crazy encounters happen to me since. Halloween attracts the craziest types of people. What's up, everybody? This is the Lone Wolf here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this Halloween special. I figured 3 shorter stories this time would be a little bit more interesting than one big one, add a little more variety to the channel, you know? Let me know what you guys think of that, and let me know if you want to hear more videos like this in the future. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications, and join the Lone Wolf Pack. If you guys want to send me a message, I will leave a link in the description for my Gmail account, so if you have any personal stories you want to share with me, go ahead and send me a message, and I'll use it in a future video. I would also like to give a big thank you to Doblado Studios. Normally Kevin Macleod has been my source of music, but Doblado Studios has allowed me to use some of his work. I will leave links in the description for both of their channels, as well as their specific tracks that I used, in case you want to listen to them for yourself. And of course, if you have any constructive criticism, feel free to leave me a comment. I'm always looking for new ways to make this channel even better. Stay spooky, you guys, and stay safe this Halloween. And remember, the hunt begins when the moon is full. Sweet dreams.